Hi, I'm George Pearson, and this is a tutorial video for Adobe's Photoshop program. You'll find links in the description for any materials used in this video, and of course don't forget to subscribe, like, and also share the video. I really appreciate that. Okay, let's go ahead and get into the video. In this Photoshop how-to, we'll be making this summertime party invitation. There's some clever little tricks going on here inside the type. Most of it though is pretty straightforward. As you can see over here we have several layers involved in this. So I'll go ahead and we'll work our way through this. Let me just get rid of this one here. Let's do a real fast save on that, and we'll then hide this layer, and we'll start from scratch. So File, New. Now the size I have it set at here is width of 5, height of 7. That's just the default Photoshop size inverted. So it's 5 width, height 7. I put the resolution at 300 because I expect this to be printed. So there we go. Choose OK. And there's our basic layout. Now the whole thing will be done with a gradient background, but we'll put that in just a little bit. Let's get our basic type down first. We also want to be able to position things nicely, so make sure that your rulers are showing. If you don't see those, go to the view and check rulers right there. We need to have two guidelines, one for the center and then one horizontal right around in here. Let's just put those exact. So View, New Guide, we'll do our vertical guideline first, and that's right in the middle. So that's 2.5. Since it's 5 wide, 2.5 is right in the center. There we go. And then one right around here is a horizontal guideline. So View, New Guide, horizontal, and put this one at 2.25 right there. That's kind of the center of our logo up in here, all of our text. Okay, let's now set the colors back to their default. Just click on the little icon right there so the colors are the defaults. Go to the type tool, make sure that's in black. There we go. Let's now grab our typeface. Now, the one I use is just a standard Arial typeface for this, and I'm using Arial Black, just the thickest of the typefaces. At any of these will work. You can use bold if you want to, but black works out fine for this. We'll be modifying this a lot, so this is just a starting point. The size I have for this is 75 point, and then opening up the character panel over here, I have the leading, which is the space between lines, set at 72. There we go, 72 point. Okay, let's just click in here someplace, just like that, and then typing this all in as caps, do serfs up. There we go. Let's change this to centered, and I'll then pull that in and get it so it kind of snaps onto the center point. There we go. Then I want the bottom of the top line resting on that horizontal guideline. So I'll just use my cursor keys, the arrow keys, and the keyboard, and we'll bring that right down to that point. Again, it's not critical on this, just about there is fine. Alright, there's our basic text. Now we'll be doing a couple of things with this. The first thing I want to do is to copy this. Before I go any further, let's just minimize that character panel. There we go. Okay, take this type layer, drag it down to the new layer button, giving a copy. You can then hide the original. We'll come back to that in just a bit. So we're now up here. Now I want to convert this to shapes. So right click on this and convert to shape. There we go. Now we can modify the shapes of our letters. I'm going to grab the zoom tool here to zoom in on the S. I won't be doing all of these letters on the video. I'll do a couple of letters so you can see what it is I'm doing. Then I'll pause the video because it takes a little while to do this process. Okay, grab the direct move tool right there and click on the edge of the letter. Now you can see that it has all of these control points on here. So it's now just a shape. It's no longer text. And what I want to do is I want to convert all of these curves into straight lines and then get rid of a few of the excess points. The same thing on all of the rest of our letters. So the curves down here, we'll do those, and in here and so forth. So let's do the first two letters I'll then pause the video, then I'll bring it back up again and show you what I did on this. So first things first, go over here to the Convert Point tool and click on every single one of these points, and it converts every single point into straight points instead of curve points. So everything needs to be straights. This is the part that takes a little while here. There's just a lot of points to click on. And just work your way around and convert every single one of these points. Now we don't need to have this many points, and you'll see why when we get down to that step. There we go. So I'll get rid of just a few of these. Go back over here and choose the Delete Anchor Point tool. And I'm just going to come in and knock off a few of these excess points in there. Just kind of limit the number I have to work with. That's okay. Don't worry if it looks real jagged. We're going to be changing this dramatically a little further on. Okay, I'll do one more letter. Back to our Direct Selection tool. Click on the path. Now these top two, you don't need to worry about these because these are straights coming out of straight lines, so they're fine. But all these bottom ones have to be converted, so go back over here, Convert Point tool, and then once again just work your way around and click on each one of these points and convert the point into a straight line as opposed to a curved point. Like that. And then come back, delete anchor point, and I'll just delete just a few of those, every other one across the bottom, and I'll take off one over here. That's fine. Okay, so that's the idea. Now on the rest of these, same thing, just go through here and convert the curves into straights and delete a few of your excess points. That doesn't need any conversion, obviously. A little bit here and here. The S is just like the other S. And same thing for the up down below. Okay, at this point I'm going to pause the video and I'll go through and I'll do this step on the rest of the letters. As soon as that's done, I'll bring this back up again and show you where we're at that point. Okay, there we go. All the letters have now been simplified. I brought that down to just a rectangle in the middle. Again, that didn't need anything. That was straightened out. Straightened all these edges and took off a few of the excess points in there. And then we'll scroll down a little bit. Same thing on the U and the P. I made the middle of the P into a triangle. Okay, that takes care of that step. We'll be coming back to this stuff in just a minute. But for right now, let's first make a copy of our original text. Let me hide that one. Make a copy of this original text, drag it down to the new text or new layer button down there and drag it above the background text in here. Let's hide the original. I'm keeping that one around just as a safety. Now on this one I want to change the size here, the face to a regular instead of this black. So go back to our type tool and click it a few times so the whole thing is selected, or just drag like that until it's all selected. And then up here, Arial, black, let's change this to regular. There we go. And change the color while we're here to white. Now notice that I have mine set on only web colors right now. That's just a kind of a limited palette. It's just easier to use it that way sometimes. Click on white, and there we go. Okay, we can no longer see our text, so now is a good time to put in our gradient background. Come down to the background, make a new layer above the background. Let's go over here to our foreground and background colors. Click into about the third blue, if you count that as a blue. So we're about here, right the middle of the blues. Just click on that one right there. It's 003399 if you want to be exact. Just that blue. That's our foreground color. Click the background color and then come back in that same spot and click on the blue up here. That's 0099FF if you want to be exact on that. And choose OK. So, medium dark, medium light blues. Let's set this whole thing so it fits in our screen. So View, Fit on Screen, there we are. And go to the Gradient tool, which is hiding behind the paint bucket right there. And it should look like this at the top. It should be the foreground to background colors. And then you want to have this set at the linear gradient, which is the default. So all of your defaults are just fine. And then come right on our vertical guideline, come just outside of the top and pull straight down to just outside of the bottom. And that should give you a nice gradient for your background. And there's our text again. Okay, so far so good. Go back up to our text. We're going to be putting just a thin outline on this to add a little bit of interest to that. And that's a layer style right there. Stroke. Here we go. So here's our stroke. Set the pixel size to 6. And on the color, click on color. Come back into our blues and click on the same blue we used down at the bottom right down there, 0099FF. Again, middle of the blues, top right corner. Just a little thin blue outline on that. Okay, now we're ready to bring our background letters back up again and begin to really change these a lot. So grab the zoom tool and let's just zoom in a bit. There we go. I'm going to pull it out just a little bit. Now this little trick here on the zoom tool, click and drag. If you drag to the right, it zooms in. Drag to the left. You can zoom back out again like that. So you have a lot of real careful control in here. Okay, now the idea behind this, and we'll be using the direct select tool, the idea is I want to drag these corners out, drag our points out, so that I have about this much black outside of the letter all the way around except on the ends. So we're just going to be changing the shape completely and giving a black outline. We're just making kind of a black pattern that the letters are sitting on top of. So to do that, just click on this. Here's our control handles. Just pull it out. Again, so it's about the same width as this. Doesn't need to be exact. Notice that this is thinner, that's thicker, but about the same width as the letters is what we're looking for. If it's a little bit rough, that's perfectly fine. That's what we want here. We want it to be a little bit rough, a little uneven. And then we'll leave a little bit of the ends of the letters sticking out just like that. And then pull your control handles around till everything is positioned nicely. Don't worry if you're overlapping your letters. You want to have some overlap in there. That's going to naturally happen on this. And I'll just pull these sides out a bit. And again, so it's about the same thickness, not exact, but approximately the same thickness around there. And ends showing, and pull the middle in here a little bit. Kind of like that. And again, if it's a little rough, little odd angles, that's perfectly fine. I'm not trying to be perfect here. If it's a little bit off, it's actually a little bit more interesting looking. So go ahead and be a little strange on the shapes. So I'll be doing this exact same thing to all of the letters. So here's our first S, do it with the U, R, and so forth. I'll do one here. I'll do the R, and then I'll pause the video. I'll finish all the rest of them, and then I'll bring it back up as soon as I'm done. So let's go to the R here. And same thing, I want to have a little bit of the ends showing. And it's going to be overlapping in the middle here. Let me just pull that overlap in while I'm at it so you can see that. Just like that, just overlapping right into the middle, that's fine. Okay, I'll just finish off this and just kind of stretch this around so it gives me that space that I want around the letters. And just leave the single point ends a little bit exposed. Bring this down a little bit here. And let me just shrink this up real small, make it a little rough. There we go. So just like that, just make these kind of just big shapes in behind the letters. And then overlap where it just naturally overlaps. Okay, I'll pause the video at this point. I'll go back and I'll finish off all of the rest of these letters. Then I'll bring it back up and show you what it looks like when I'm finished. Again, just the basic rules. Leave a good wide thickness around the letters, about that thickness approximately, and leave your overlaps in and leave the ends sticking out like that and like that. Okay, there we go. Those are the ends are sticking out like that, so that's all the same. Just odd kind of chunky angles on that, that's perfectly fine. It's not really clean. I don't want it to be clean in here. Only thing I broke my rule and the end sticking out was this little apostrophe. I left that completely enclosed, but I made sure that end stayed clean. And then this S over here. Now on this one, if you want to, you could pull that into that shape. I mean, that's kind of a personal choice up here. This is one of those things where you may want to break the rule just because of the way the letters kind of line up. You might want to do that so there's an overlap. That's up to you if you want to have that overlap up here or not. But the rest I think is pretty good. So there we go. There's the basic layout. Now we're going to be converting this into a wooden cutout effect. But I want to save this stage just in case I'm not happy. I can always go back to this. So grab this layer, drag it down to the new layer button, make a copy of that layer, hide your original. So we have our first text, our first change text, and then a copy of that. On this layer, right click and rasterize the layer. So it's now just a graphic. Now we have that, we can begin working on our wood grain effect. Come down to your colors, left hand side, and click on the default color button so you have our default colors, and then up to filter, come down here to render and fibers. Now I have mine set at 16 and 4 on the strength. That's pretty good. Variant 16, strength 4. You can click randomize if you want to. Anything in here should look pretty good on this. So 16 and 4, choose OK, and there's just these kind of fiber things put in here. We now need to colorize this. So go up to Image Adjustments, Hue Saturation. There's our Hue Saturation dialog box. Click on Colorize right there, and then we're going to be putting in specific settings on this to give us that wood look. So the hue is set at 16. Saturation is set at 53. And the lightness is at a -17. Just like that. There we go. It's kind of a nice bright red wood effect. Okay, now we need to take it a little bit further and put in our bevel and our emboss on this one. So let's go up here to Layer, Layer Style, Bevel and Emboss. There we go. And we'll change our settings in here. Inner bevel and smooth, leave all those the same. On the depth, set this to 113. On the size, set that to 10. I think it's just kind of a nice edge in there. Let's now change the effect on this. Come in here where it says Shading, uncheck Global Light, and then set the angle to 0 and the altitude here to 85. There we are. And that gives us kind of an interesting plasticky look, like a little plastic reflection in there on the edge. There we go. Okay, that takes care of that. Now one last thing on this, I want to have a drop shadow on this. So come down to Drop Shadow, and we want to have the angle at 120. That's fine. Distance 5, size 5, so that's all fine at the defaults. There we go. Just a little edge in there. Okay, there's kind of our high gloss wood background effect on that. Let's put a drop shadow now onto our foreground lettering. So go up here, foreground lettering, and double click where it says Effects, brings back the effects. Add a drop shadow onto this one. Leave everything the same except for the distance, set that at 25. And choose OK. So it's nice kind of drop shadow happening on there. It looks real complex in here, and that's what we're looking for, a real kind of interesting complex look. Okay, that takes care of the text. Let's just go ahead and back out here, fit on screen. There it is. There's the type. The next thing we need to have is our surfboard. So I'm going to hide all of the text. Let's get this out of our way. There we go. Come down to Layer 1. Now the surfboard, we're going to be building it in the middle, and then we'll rotate the surfboard after we have the thing built. Now I want to have it coming down to about 5 1/4 on the height. So I'm just going to drag a guideline down here to about 5 1/4. Doesn't need to be exact, but down here somewhere is approximately 5 1/4 right there. Okay, let's change our color. I'm just going to use a bright green to start off with, a lime green. We'll change the color later. So bright green, go over here to the Ellipse Tool and fill, no stroke, that's fine. Go over here to our options, click on Unconstrained, and let's not do it from the center, so uncheck that. And I'll just go over here to, somewhere over here somewhere, and at the very, very top, click, and I'll pull down until the new guideline down there, and just kind of find the right width for that, whatever looks good. Doesn't need to be exact, so about that wide. Looks pretty good, kind of a basic surfboard shape. And I'll just drag it onto the center line right there. Okay, here's our basic surfboard shape. We need an indent on the bottom down here. Let's take care of that next. Now because it's a shape, we can use our shape tools. And I'll go over here to our little add anchor point tool. And I'll add a point here on the left side and the right side at the bottom. Go back to the direct select tool. Grab the very bottom and just pull that up a little bit like that. And that gives us our tail there for our surfboard, so that's pretty good. We now need to have our center line on this surfboard, center line in white. So I'll make a new layer right here. We'll do our center line now. And for this I'll grab the Polygonal Lasso tool. Just click right on our center line up here at some point. Look, click there and come down for like little arrow point there. And pull straight down. So it's about the same in here as that center, just kind of following that center line and go to the middle and then down a bit, make like little back arrow point down there, and then finish it up there. Doesn't need to be exact, just kind of like that. Let's fill it with white. So go back and reset our colors, invert those to white, and grab the paint bucket tool and make sure on layer 2, there we are. And we'll just fill that with white. There we go. And I'm just going to name this one Stripe. There it is. And we'll name the ellipse board. Now let's put some layer styles on these. I'll deselect that. Let's do a quick layer style on this one. So layer and layer style, stroke. There's our stroke. We'll change the thickness in here for the layer style outside, set it to 18. You can see there's that stroke effect in there, and let's change our color, come into our oranges, do about like that, and then change the opacity to 70%. Just kind of see-through. Looks pretty good. Now at this point, if you want to come in here and adjust things a bit, you can. Now is your chance to get the size just right. I'll make it a little bit thinner like that. Maybe a little bit longer. There we go. Looks pretty good. Okay, so there's that one. Let's now come back to our board. Go up to Edit and Transform, Rotate, and set the angle up here to 45. There we go. And let's confirm that. Okay, down to the board. Let's now put our bevel effect on the board itself. So layer, layer style, bevel and emboss. We'll do the same thing that we did on the text basically. So inner bevel and smooth. Set the depth to 113 again. There we go. And set the size this time to 43. So it's pretty good size. You can see right there. Pretty thick size on that. That gives kind of the board effect for us. So that's 43. Now on the shading, uncheck global light. Set the angle to 0. And set the altitude to 85. And that gives us that interesting kind of highlight right along that edge. There's a kind of glossy, plastic looking bit in there. Choose OK. Actually, before we do that, let's put a drop shadow on here as well. So come down here to drop shadow. And we'll just do this, just kind of a basic drop shadow on that. So multiply, angle 120 is fine. Let's set the distance in here to 13. And let's set the size to 35. Just kind of soften that up a little bit. And there we go. So there is the basic surfboard. Okay, grab the surfboard and the stripe, and let's just move that up and center that right there, little center point right on our guidelines. Okay, so that's centered. We can now bring back our text, and that's our top text and the wood tone text in behind. Okay, back down to the layer down here. We'll be putting another shape on top of this layer. So leave the colors as is, that's fine. White and black is fine. Go back to the Ellipse Tool. There it is. And let's change the settings in here. We want this to be a circle, and I want to draw from the center. So circle and from center. So that's right there. Click and drag, and then pull it out so it's not quite all the way to the edges of those letters. Like that. It's just not quite to the letters. You can adjust that size later on if you want to, but that's our starting point. Let's put a effect on this, a stroke on this one. So layer, layer style, stroke, and on this, let's come in and do a blue coloration on this. So we'll click on our color in here and back to our blues. I'll use that same blue we used before, 0099FF, choose OK, and then let's thicken the stroke up a bit. Here's our size, set this at 30, so it's a pretty good thickness in there. There you go, and choose OK. So there's our circle. Now we need to have the picture inside of this. Several ways to do that. You could select this and do a paste into if you want to. I'm going to do it a little bit differently this time. So let's open up the file. Now the link for this file is available in the description. You can find that. It's just called Beach, and the link is on my support page for the video, and the link is in the description for that. So just grab this picture, pull it in. There we go. I'll close that down. So here's our picture. Now it's a little bit too small. That's fine. I'm just going to hold the Shift key down, and I'll stretch the picture out so it just comes into that blue outline, top and bottom, and then put it somewhere around here. I want to have a little bit of these palm leaves showing in behind that. That's good. And let's confirm that. There we go. Okay, now I want to have that inside of my circle. That's easy to do. Come down to the circle, hold the Control key down, and click on the circle. That makes a selection based upon the contents of that layer. See right there, there's that selection. But I'm still on my picture layer. So now all I have to do is click on the layer mask. And there we go. It makes a layer mask that matches that circle, and it drops a picture into the layer mask. Okay, so far so good. That takes care of everything in here except for our final bit of type at the bottom. And that's above this layer. So that's in white. We're still on white. That's fine. Go back to the type tool. Let's change our typeface. What I used here is Bauhaus 93. But you know, any typeface down here is fine. I think kind of a fat typeface is nice, but any typeface is fine. Change the size of your type to 36, so it's a standard type size. Bring our character panel back up again. If you're not seeing it in here, just go up to the window menu and characters right there. And change the leading on this to 48. There we go. And then also want to have this left justified. Okay, we're all set. Click down here someplace and type in party, enter key, time colon, space, and then hold the Shift key down. I'm using the underscore, which is just to the right of the 0 key on the keyboard, so it's underscore. Now let's type out a few of those. Enter key, place, colon, space, Shift, and get the underscore again for our line. And there we go. Kind of center that nicely in the bottom section. And let's hide those guidelines. And there it is. There is our Surf's Up party invite. Let's just see, let's look a little bit larger. I'll float that up here. And let's pull our size down a bit. There we go. Back to our zoom tool. And let's bring that up too far. Bring our size up just like that. There we go. So there is our Surf's Up party invitation. And of course, the tricky part about this was that background plaque kind of thing in behind the letters in that surfboard. And there's one last step in here. If you want to change the color of the surfboard, real easy to do. Let's just go back up here to our board layer. There we are. Bring the effects back up again. And to change the color of the surfboard to anything that you want, just come down to Color Overlay, and it will change the surfboard. Click on the color swatch right there to choose a different color. And we'll come in for a nice orange color in there and choose OK. So as you can see, real easy to change the surfboard color to anything that you feel like choosing. This also shows you why I went with a 70% on that stroke outline. So we're seeing a little bit of the board color through that stroke. So when you change the color of that, it helps to blend in that outline of that stroke with the color of the board underneath. So that's why we did that 70% on that one. So there you go. That's how you can change the board color. When you're really anything that you want to have in here, you can do a blue board, bright fuchsia board, red board, anything you like at this point to come in and give yourself a more interesting board color to kind of custom match the coloration of the board to whatever the color themes are for your party. So there you go. That's our final little last step in there, changing the board color. Okay, and that's it. That's how to do the Surf's Up party invitation. Thank you for watching this special Photoshop photography project video. Don't forget to subscribe so that you will get first notice of new project videos in the future. Just click on this link right here where it says subscribe here. You can get all 12 project videos in this series along with 26 special videos demonstrating the tools and techniques that I used in these projects by clicking on this link right down here. And then thank you again for watching this